everyone, welcome back to Blooms and Bicycles. As we bring in the month of June, Pride celebrations start in the cities across the world, and emblazoned across all street corners are rainbow flags which we take inspiration from with our rainbow collection this month. Also available throughout the rest of summer, you are able to order these whenever you like. So if, like us in Manchester, the Pride celebrations are in August, if you'd like to dress your home fittingly for the time, you can do. So in today's tutorial, we'll be sharing with you how to construct the Rainbow Teapot Letterbox Flowers. Our water vessel is already prepared with the water and flower feed. However, if you would like to understand what to do, you can always refer to our flower care video via the link in the description box below. To begin with, we'll start by creating the grid, and we do this by using the strongest stems. So in this collection, those stems are the Salal and the Lancet, as well as this beautiful Rainbow Gypsophila. Salal tips always have offshoots from the main stem, which creates a V shape. This adds a lot of volume. However, what we also need to give consideration to is the height of the vase. This water vessel, being only a teapot, is very low, so we need to trim away now, relative to the height of the teapot, some of the length from the main stem, in order to make sure that the V shape sits just above the opening of the vase. And we cut on an angle so that the water and the nutrients from the flower feed can be taken up as much as possible. So then we'll take our next piece of Salal, and because the number 3 is always a magic number in floristry, we will use the 2 offshoots from this main stem so that we start to create a triangle with the Salal. So we'll do that by taking away one of the offshoots, trimming on the angle, and again we'll just cut down to size the main stem of Salal so that the V shape rests gently at the opening of the vase or of the teapot. So now we've got a natural triangle created, which actually almost is created like a star formation. So the Lancet leaves, which come as part of this design, have a natural leaning to them. So taking advantage of the way they cascade, we'll cut those down to size also and allow them to tumble over the top of the teapot. And I think they are so beautiful towards the front, given the different textures that they will then introduce to the overall arrangement. Next, we'll take our Rainbow Gypsophila. The reason we'll cut these quite short from the main offshoot is because we'll be actually making sure the flowers sit just above the opening of the vase, therefore allowing for other flower stems to be woven in between them, which will then allow for the flowers to hold into position later on. It will make a lot more sense in a moment. So as you can see, with this main stem, we've taken most of it away, only leaving less than an inch. And we'll position this in the center, pressing as far down as possible. Sometimes the Gypsophila offshoots are very delicate, as you can see with this one, and some of them inevitably will fall away from the rest of the stem. There's absolutely no need to waste these, just trim them away, making sure you trim parallel to the branch they are closest to, and that just makes for a neater finish when you do cut away. And then what we can do is keep these to one side, and at the end we'll add them into the spout. So what's lovely about this is we've now started to create an ombre effect between the offshoots, which have lemony and golden yellow hues in, which then graduate into the corally oranges and then more towards the violet hues of the pink stem on the opposite side. And it's just absolutely beautiful. So with these natural garden designs that we go for, irregular balance is the key. So as well as the variation in colours, we also have trimmed them to varying heights Both together they create different points of interest, which all together help create a design that allows the eye to continue moving throughout. So what we can just do is trim away some of the greenery, just 1 or 2 stems. Take away the leaves which would sit under the water level and just weave those into the grid to create a central focal point. So now we just need to make sure that the 5-point star is still in place for, again, the overall balance. And now we're ready to start adding the rest of the flowers. So to begin with, we'll take our hydrangea. So this beautiful inky blue hydrangea with purple violet hues running throughout it is absolutely spectacular and looks so beautiful next to the rainbow roses, which will be added shortly. Given the fact that it has such a big flower head, it does have a natural curve to the stem, and it also has a very dominating presence. But given how beautiful it is, I think working to the advantage of all its characteristics and placing it towards the front of the display works really well. So what we'll do is we'll take away the lower part of the stem, and then we'll just add this in at the front, allowing it to lean off to one side. And we'll just move some of this Gypsophila around to create contrast. Now what's so beautiful is the way the colours in the pink stems of the Gypsophila complement so well the inky blue tones within this hydrangea, and I just absolutely love as well how that colour complements so well the dusky pink tones in the teapot too. A match made in heaven. So next we'll take the rainbow roses. Again, working to the magic of 3, we'll create a triangle with these roses whilst also using them to counterbalance the presence of the hydrangea on this side by placing them on the opposite side. What's so beautiful about the way these roses are dyed is how the leaves also change colour as well as the flower themselves. So you get this spectacular display of different coloured leaves as well as variations in the petals. So here we've got some dark purple and almost magenta coloured leaves, while others are like a deep turquoise, and then others like a forest green or like a goldy yellow. So even though we do need to strip away the majority of the leaves from a rose, it doesn't do any harm to just leave the top couple, given the fact they provide another additional point of interest to the design. So with this first rainbow rose, we'll create the highest point of the triangle, and we'll just visualize where we want this to be. So given the height of the hydrangea, I think we'll maybe position it around this area here. So what we do is we take the stem, hold it behind the teapot, and that just allows us to start working out how much of the stem needs to be trimmed away. So we just gradually take away more and more of the stem. Always remember, you can always take away, but you can't add back on. So to take away gradually is always the best approach. And we'll just weave this in between the Gypsophila and then further into the grid created by the salal and the lancet. So again, we hold our stem on the angle we envisage it being on the outside of the teapot, and we continue to cut away gradually until we feel it's at the height it needs to be. And then we take away the lower leaves. So we'll just add this into the grid now. And then thinking about where to put this final rose, taking away the lower leaves, but leaving those at the top. And then we'll just weave this in gradually. So next we'll then take the sunflower, which is another major focal point in this design. And because we've now got the hydrangea leaning off to one side and the triangle of roses to balance this out on the other side, we'll now start to think about how to create that graduation of height. So going from these lower points, the sunflower will sit perfectly when positioned a bit higher, and again it works to the magic of 3, because between the 3 different points of interest you then have another triangle. So we'll take away our leaves, and again we'll hold our flower stem in position and trim away until it's at the required height. And then we'll just gently weave this in to the grid, and see how easily the stems are now starting to hold themselves because of that grid that we've created to begin with. So next we'll take the Bouvardia as well as our Veronica. So to create balance, we'll then also use the natural height that the stems come with and use these to build out the back of the design and create a natural fan effect. So I think this Bouvardia will sit perfectly next to that sunflower and will really pick up on the magenta and purple tones in the rainbow flowers close by. Taking away any leaves which will fall under the watermark, we then just add this into the back. So you might have noticed we haven't actually taken away all of the leaves from the different flower stems, and this is because they're so detailed and actually very beautiful in their own right, and actually offer points of interest just as much as the flower heads themselves. So maybe not always using all of the leaves, but at least leaving a few in each of the different varieties. Again, just helps to keep the eye moving throughout the design. So next we'll take our Veronica, and to help create that irregular balance which we continually talk about, we'll look to add that on the opposite side to the Bouvardia, so that there's 2 splashes of pink on either side. And I think that just sits slightly too high at the moment. So we'll trim away, and we'll just keep weaving the stem into the grid until it sits in a place where it's happy. So next we'll then take the Gentiana, a very dark blue in colour. We'll use this towards the back of the design, given the amount of dark blue which is offered by the hydrangea lower down at the front of the design. And given this is very dark in comparison to the sunflower, it won't matter too much if this sits slightly higher at the back, because the eye will still be guided to the brightness of the sunflower. So next we'll take the Alstroemeria. This beautiful variety has a real jammy colour to the flower as they open up, again further adding to the rainbow effect that we're going for. With the Teapot Letterbox Flowers, you'll receive 3 of these stems, so we'll use these to create a loose triangle formation again. This will also help take advantage of some of the negative spaces throughout the design that we currently have, given the spray effect of the variety, which offers so much in terms of volume. Again, we hold the stem at the back of the teapot at the angle we'd like it to be, and we work out gradually by trimming away small pieces at a time until it's at the required height, and then we just gradually add it into the grid until we find a place where it holds itself. And we'll twirl the flower stem until the flower cups sit towards the front so that you get to see it and its full effect. So that's the first one. We'll make sure this Gentiana sits off to the side of that, and I think one just on the opposite side, again next to the Gentiana, will add that balance. And you can just keep trying until you find a place where you and the flower are both happy. So So as you start to build out the design, you might choose to switch the place of some of the flower stems. So for example, now that we've added the Alstroemeria towards the back of this one here, the Bouvardia might well actually benefit from being closer to the front and nestled in between the roses and the hydrangea. So that's what we'll do, because the distribution of pink and the balance of pink colours will still be provided by the Alstroemeria at the back. So again, if we hold our flower stem at the angle and gradually snip away until it's at the height we need it to be. And then we start to remove any leaves or offshoots which will fall under the watermark. And I think that's starting to look nicely balanced. So now we'll take our third piece of Alstroemeria, and because we're trying to create that natural fan effect, we'll reposition the second piece of Alstroemeria to sit more centrally next to the Gentiana, and then we'll add in the final piece so that it mirrors where the Veronica is on the opposite side. And snip away gradually. So now finally, for the last piece of Gypsophila, we'll use this to create a backdrop. So you can actually flex the stems and move them around other flower heads to just create that sort of intermingling effect. So just take this final offshoot away from that stem, cutting as far down as possible to keep as much length as we can, and we'll just add this in. Again, to help create that natural burst effect. As you can see, some pieces are sitting pretty horizontally, so again, it's really important to always make sure that the water vessel is filled right to the top. Then finally, with those small pieces of Gypsophila which we trimmed away earlier, again, because waste not, want not, we'll just tie them together and put them in the spose. And there you have it, the Rainbow Teapot Letterbox Flowers. I hope you enjoy.